I welcome all the participants and the speakers to the meeting today. We will begin the program in a short while. A very good afternoon, and I welcome all the participants to today's session on Exim Bank and ECGC session on enhancing India-ASEAN trade in engineering and allied sectors. This session is being jointly organized with the support of Exim Bank and ECGC, and we have with us amongst us today Mr. P.K. Shah, former chairman of EEPC India. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Mr. C.N.A. Anbarasan, Executive Director Operations, ECGC India, and Mr. T.G. Sivakumar, General Manager, Exim Bank. So without taking much time, I request Mr. P.K. Shah, former Chairman, EEPC India, to begin the session with his welcome address.
Thanks. Namaskar. Good afternoon. I have pleasure in welcoming you all the participants, and to this seminar. I have a special welcome for Mr. CNA Anbrasan, Executive Director of ECGC, and Mr. TD Shiv Kumar, General Manager Exim Bank, who has kindly consented to give as a guest speaker to. We are grateful for your presence today. The economic partnership between India and the ASEAN has continued to strengthen since the economic relationship began in 1992, and with the ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement after coming into effect in 2009. The deepening of ties began to show in the intra-country trade figures. According to the DGCI's figures of India's exports to ASEAN countries increased from US dollar 10.41 billion in 2005-06 to 31.49 billion in 2021, registering a growth of more than 200%. ASEAN accounted for 10.81% of India's total exports during 2021. It is to be mentioned that Indian exports to ASEAN stands at 11.23 billion in 2021, which is more than one-third of the India's total exports to ASEAN in the same fiscal. The major Indian items imported by ASEAN countries are products of iron and steel, industrial machinery, vehicles, and other railway, tramways, and electrical machineries. India-ASEAN trade and investment relations have been growing steadily, with ASEAN being India's fourth largest trading partner. The two regions share similarity in their levels of economic development. They are home to rapidly expanding markets and aim to address infrastructure challenges. These similarities offer space for continued and more diversified trade in goods and services, as well as business-to-business engagement between India and ASEAN, tapping into the investment requirements of modernizing industries and domestic consumption trends in each other's market. There are many challenges, as you all know, that we are importing more from the ASEAN countries and then exporting. We are not part of ASEAN. We are only having our free trade agreements, but we are not a member of ASEAN countries. We have not signed RCEP, so that is also, and then we are competing with China. We are having a lot of deficiencies as far as infrastructure is concerned. There is a vast opportunity. There is no two opinion about this. We have to compete with China because China has very good infrastructure and close to this most of the ASEAN countries, and with the member countries and free trade arrangements, they are having upper hand with us. As you all know, we are trying that how the infrastructure, because today the biggest problem is the connectivity. You all know very well, for sending a material to Myanmar from India, the container goes to Singapore or Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and then it goes to, which is hardly 8 to 10 hours shipping time if it goes direct from India. I feel that Exim Bank and ECGC has a major role to play. As far as Exim Bank is concerned, we know that India line of credit is all routed through Exim Bank, and for getting entry in any country and to have put up our projects or the units, we need those line of credits. So our presence is there, because they have to buy from India only. And once we have our population of our equipments, machines, or infrastructure development, then definitely they will be more dependent on us. Of course, a lot of lines of credits are being extended by Government of India through the Exim Bank, and it is being used by Indian exporters. But still, I feel that more and more line of credit should be extended, and the ease of doing business should also be there. As you know, that project exports is very much important and is very much needed. I think Exim Bank had done a lot of study on this in the past with the Government of India, and at that stage we had requested that let EEPC join with Exim Bank for implementation of that recommendations of that study, which was done by Government of India, prepared by Exim Bank, because most of the are industrial projects. We are only talking of industrial projects and infrastructure projects, and we are not talking of any civil projects and all that. So I will take this opportunity to request our general manager from Exim Bank to just look into that area. And friends, before I conclude, I can only tell you that for development of business in ASEAN, we need the full support of ECGC and Exim Bank. And both the gentlemen, senior officials are here to address us today. And I hope that this will help us in increasing our exports of engineering goods, especially to these ASEAN countries, in spite of the fact that presently we are not at par as far as relationship is concerned, because we are not member of ASEAN and we have not signed the RCEP. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your address and for setting the context and tone for our session today. I would like to, with this, I would like to invite the first speaker for the session, Mr. CNA Anbarasan, Executive Director, ECGC, who will be speaking on the role of ECGC as the key enabler towards achieving target trade between India and ASEAN countries.
Thank you. Good afternoon, all of you. Good afternoon, Mr. P.K. Shah, Madam Pallavi, and other distinguished members and participants. I am Anbarasan. Madam, are you hearing?
Yes, sir. Your voice
Yes, sir.
and
Yes, sir.
screen
Yes,
is
sir.
also good.
Voice is clear, no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I am Anbarasan from ECGC. So today, Mr. Sam P.K. Shah has explained about this engineering export of our country, and then what is the share of engineering export. The same way ECGC is also having good cooperation and coordination with EEPC. We have very good relationship with EEPC. Whatever programs they have been conducting, we are participating. The same way they are also extending their support to ECGC for organizing such kind of meetings, awareness meeting for the existing customer as well as the new customers. See, under this, our business cover, we are also having 24% the risk value cover, means business cover of engineering exports of the total ECGC cover. So it plays vital role in our ECGC cover. because we have covered 24%. Then during last March, it was 18%. This 24% is as of June. Then same way, growth rate is also the 14% in as of March. Growth rate, the commodity growth rate. In spite of this pandemic and COVID situation, the engineering product is doing well. We have also shown some growth. That commodity also shown good growth. So I appreciate and appreciate the exporting community for their very good work they are being done for the country, for the foreign exchange also. Okay, so next, coming to our subject. So today I am going to give some small presentation about the schemes. What are the schemes we are giving to the exporters? Then I am not particularly giving any PPT for the Asian countries or engineering product. I am giving only snapshot of the what are the products available for the exporters, which can be useful for the exporters who are doing export. The lot of exporters, the lot of means most of the members are our customers. However, the members who are not having our policy, they can also get the benefit of ECGC. Then those who are having the product, they can also benefit out of this PPT, which will be useful to all of you. So coming to this one. So these are the risks involved in international trade. All of you aware that what are the risks? See, the international trade is very dynamic. See, nowadays the most of the destinations are slowing down because of so many reasons, pandemic and other reasons. Then credit periods are getting extended regularly even from the regular buyers. Lot of insolvencies are coming to our knowledge. Then defaults are also coming to our ECGC's knowledge. So nowadays we have been getting lot of claims and defaults. Even though we have extended the time, you are also aware that we have been getting, last year we have got more than 400 claims in numbers are pending in spite of paying some 400 crore to the policyholders, about 200 and odd claims. Still we have 400 claims pending with us. That shows that the defaults are increasing and the claims are also increasing. Okay, so then nowadays these payment terms are also getting changed. Most of the buyers are asking OD terms, open delivery terms, instead of advance payment, LC, and either they require an open delivery terms or DA, document against acceptance. I will be explaining the terms in coming slides. Okay. Then alternate supply sources also opening up for the buyers. Then alternate markets are opening up. So developments like coup and war is increasing. The recent example is Afghanistan. Keeping in mind all, the government has established ECGC in 1957 to cover the risk of the exporters. It's a 100% government-owned company, regulated by IRDA. It's managed by Board of Directors, and Board of Directors consist of Government of India, RBI, then commercial banks, export community insurance. Then now this member of Mr. Saktivel is the member in our board, who is the representing the exporting community. We have head office plus 5 regional office and 46 branches. We have been continuously paying good claims. Almost 80 to 85% of premium is being paid as claim. Except last year we have paid 408 crore because of pandemic. We couldn't. It is 2021 and 1920. These 2 years we couldn't because of pandemic and disturbances. Other than that, earlier years, if you see our balance sheet in website, we have been paying more than 1,000 crore. That is almost 85 to 90% of our premium. We don't have any operating profit. We are having profit of only from investment. That means our vision and mission is to help the exporters. We are operating mostly in no profit, no loss basis only. In addition to that, we are managing the NEAA account. I think Mr. Shivakumar from Exim Bank also will explain about in his presentation. This NEAA trust is being funded by the Government of India. Totally, we have more than 3,500 crore corpus with us to cover medium and long-term exports, which is strategically important to India. The risks are basically beyond the cover of ECGC's capital. That's why ECGC capacity. That's why Government of India has created separate trust to help the medium and long-term exports. So under export insurance, we have lot of losses. Under the export, we have loss to the commodity, exchange risk loss, and payment risk loss. We ECGC cover only payment risk cover. That is which are the covers available. I will explain in the coming slide. Then damage to goods is being covered by the general insurance company. Exchange risk we don't cover. It has been covered by the banks by hedging by the authorized dealer. Sorry. See, these are the terms of payment. DP, DA, OD, LC. DP means document against payment. That means once the exporter sends the documents through his own bank, authorized dealer bank, to buyer's bank, the buyer will make the payment first and take the delivery of document and clear the consignment. DA means its acceptance, document against acceptance. D is accepting the document and taking the document, taking delivery of goods. The period tenor of the payment will be vary from 30 days to 180 days, even up to 360 days. Up to 360 days, as per the recent RBI guidelines, it will be treated as short-term exports only. Beyond 360 days, it will come under medium and long term. Then open delivery terms. Open delivery means it will be mostly this consignment will be sent by air. The exporter will send the consignment in air. The document will be faxed or it will be emailed. With that, he will take delivery of goods. This is more risky. The OD and DAs are more risky. Then LC. LC is the less risky. But in the LC also there are risks are there. If there is a discrepancies in LC, then the default of LC opening bank, then the insolvency of LC opening bank are there. So this we are covering. See, recently it has been introduced discrepancies. Also we are covering mostly discrepancies related to some spelling mistake, or instead of Mumbai they have typed Bombay, or Chennai, Madras instead of Chennai. Like that, small discrepancy we cover. It is not basically not related to the document. Then as far as DA and OD, these are the covers we are giving. See, failure to take delivery of goods, then insolvency, non-payment, then part payment, takes delivery of payment without. See, this one, first one, failure to take delivery. This is mostly happens under DP. Sometimes it happens in DA also. This cover is no insurance company, private insurance companies are offering except ECGC. Why insurance is required? See, to protect the buyer's failure or the non-payment by the buyer country. Sometimes buyer is ready to make payment, but the country doesn't have the sufficient foreign exchange. So because of that, they couldn't repatriate the money. So that is coming under our cover. We are covering under political risk. Then it facilitates exporter on credit basis. We focus on the buyer's credit worthiness. Then we give credit report means limit the buyer wise limit to the exporters. This gives additional benefit to the exporter as well as to bankers. And seeing the creditworthiness of the buyer, the banker will be easily negotiating the bill. Then facilitate internal risk management, then maximize resources. Then exporter can enter into new market, new business, because only thing they will have to take a policy and refer that buyer to us. We will examine the buyer and give the report on the buyer. It will be very strengthened and useful to the exporters. This is the business profile of ECGC. We have two covers, one to the exporter, another to the bankers and financial institution. And to the exporters, we have two type of covers. One is under short term, another one is medium and long term cover. That is mostly given by Exim Bank and some other financial institution or some banks. So these short term policies, we have 16 and add policies from declaration based policy, exposure based policy, like that. We have a factoring scheme for MSME exporters also. Under medium and long term, we have a specific contract cover, specific shipment policy, then overseas investment insurance policy, then buyer credit insurance policy in cooperation with Exim Bank also. These are all the covers we are extending. The cover issued to banks that we call means an exporter avails finance from bank. So we are giving cover to the bank. If the exporter is the customer of the bank, if we give cover under, we have issued normally to all the nationalized bank and private banks, old private banks. Mostly the new private banks are not coming to our cover. Old all private banks plus nationalized bank, including SBI, we have issued whole turnover cover. Whole turnover cover means all the export customers are covered with the ECGC. See, this is issued under short term. Medium and long term, we are giving individual cover only. Under this cover, all fund-based limit, packing credit, PC means packing credit, and post shipments are covered. Then the bank will easily finance to the exporters if the exporters are covered with ECGC. Because the risk of the non-payment by the exporter or insolvency of the exporter. Here, the under policy, we are covering the default insolvency of the buyer. Here, under cover to bank, we are covering the default and insolvency of the exporter. So, if bankers are taking cover on these exporters, the banker will be free to risk. They can easily finance to the banks. This is the major advantage of the banks having cover on the exporter. We have, other than that, special schemes like line of credit and buyer's credit, as I have already explained, that buyer's credit in we are giving cover along with Exim Bank. Sir, we are covering these buyers based on because these are the two pillars of ECGC. One is buyer risk rating, another one is country risk rating. We are, then an exporter exports to a buyer. He would like to know the buyer's, how is the experience of the buyer. What we do, we have a scorecard model. We have scorecard model. Under this scorecard model, we get a report from the agency. We have more than 16 agencies with us. We will get the report from the agencies based on the financial, industrial outlook, business ability, their transaction behavior, then our experience, based on which we are drawing a limit. Overall limit we fix. This buyer is eligible for 100 crore. Then we will distribute to all the exporters who wants to have this limit on this buyer. This is very helpful to the exporter as well as bankers. If they get the limit, then bankers will be free to extend the finance, means extend to negotiate this limit on this buyer. Then we are maintaining the buyer specific approval list. This called shortly is called BSAL. BSAL means this is based on the default reported by the exporter or any other financial difficulties or insolvency, based on which we are keeping these buyers on the specific approval list. Buyer specific. It's not a default list, it's a buyer specific approval list. It means if an exporter comes to cover on this buyer, we will case to case basis, we will see that buyer is their credit worthiness, we will extend the cover. That's why we call it a BSAL list. We should not call it as a default buyer list because the buyer may sue us. Next one is country underwriting. This is another important work of ECGC. All the countries are divided into 7 group of countries. A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. Means A1 means insignificant risk. D is the very high risk. So today also we have placed Afghanistan under D because of the coup is going on. We have placed the D. D means high risk. Under this D, we have 2 categories. D, group 1 and group 2. Group 1 we have 19 countries, group 2 9 countries. That means group 1 means we will give 1 year cover for in these countries which are in group 1. In this 1 year they can do exports, whereas and then after 1 year they will have to come for our cover. Whereas group 2 countries, each and every shipments they will have to come for our approval. Because where it is politically the country is very risky and economically very risky. So like this, based on this evaluation, economic risk, political risk evaluation, we are grouping the countries into 7 categories. So this is just the model how we are evaluating the country. A1, A2. Okay, coming to the risk covered. What are the ECGC is covering? Insolvency of the buyer, protracted default, failure to refuse the accept the goods. That is called repudiation. This mostly happens on DP transaction. Then LC opening bank, commercial risk is covered. As I have already explained, insolvency of LC opening bank, protected default and LC discrepancies. These are the risks not covered, where there is a transfer delay, imposition of restriction by the buyer country, then occurrence of war, civil. Sorry, these are all the political risks. These are all the political risks. War, because of war, civil war, rebellion, disturbances. If the payment is delayed, we are covering this. Some import restriction of the buyer country which affected the shipment, that also we are covering. Cancellation of value important license. Then diversion of the voyage means interruption. Because of that, some disturbances, shipment is going diverted from the normal route to different route. Because of that, the exporter has to incur more expenditure on the shipping. That we are giving cover. This is the political risk. These are the risks not covered. Mostly commercial disputes, quality dispute we are not covering. For that, we will see we are not 100% rejecting that coverage. We see when it was why it was dispute arised. Then we will request the exporter to get the degree on in his favor in the buyer's country. Then we will cover the risk. That means we are not 100% rejecting the claim due to commercial dispute. Sometimes commercial dispute happens. The buyer is raising dispute or quality dispute or some other dispute when the due date is arisen. So that we see case to case basis. We see when he has raised. If he has received the consignment, immediately he raises the quality dispute or some other dispute, it is acceptable. He has raised the dispute when the payment is due, then we will not accept. We also consider the claim. That what I mean to say that 100% we are not rejecting a claim just because of the commercial dispute. We see the timings also, we see the circumstances also. Based on the circumstances, we consider the claim. Okay. Then buyer's failure to obtain import license, then default of the agent. For example, buyer, buyer's agent or exporter's agent or banker, collecting banker. If they have failed, that we are not covering. Damage of goods, that I have already explained, it will be covered by general insurance company. Exchange fluctuation risk, that will be covered by the bank, by authorized dealer, I have explained. The failure to export or the fulfill the terms of contract. Mostly it happens that the shipment has to be made before 30th June. Sometimes the exporters make the shipment on 1st July or 2nd July after the contract date. So this kind of things happening, we are seeing by experience. So this is the failure of the fulfillment of contract. So such kind of things we don't accept it. But what we are advised to the exporter, when you are not in a position to export within the time frame given by the buyer, you immediately write a mail, I send a mail and get extension from him. If you have the extension, that will be useful in future, because see, our claim is considered based on only paper. So if you give sufficient documentary evidence, paper to us, we will accept that one. So you will have to write to mail to the exporter and get the extension, based on which you can send the consignment. That will be proof of accepting by the exporter. Tomorrow, in future, you will not raise that you have sent the shipment late delivery, because of that I have lost the customer. So like that will not happen. This is my request. These are all the policies, various policies I have explained. We are having more than 16 and add policies: declaration based policy, exposure based, specialized cover, specialized transaction. You can see in our website, ecgc.in, all the products are available. Then some brief write-up is available in our website. Some of the do's and don'ts, just for your all, I am not going because of time. See, these are you will have to check whether the policy is valid, the advance premium is paid, sufficient limit is available, whether you have checked e-connectivity, because why e-connectivity is required. In this e-connectivity, you can check with the buyer's details. This is available to the hold on our policy holder. You can verify whether the buyer is in BSAL or not. See, this is a list of customers, point number 6, adverse experience. This you can check if you have e-connectivity. If the customer is in BSAL, you should get prior approval from ECGC, then only you will have to make shipments. Then if you making shipment to restricted cover country, I have already explained 9 plus 9, 19 plus 9 countries are there, then you will have to get our approval and send this one. So shipment declaration you will have to declare to ECGC. Then overdue, if anything happens beyond 30 days, then 60 days for some policies, you will have to immediately report to ECGC. Otherwise, if there is a delay in report of default, there is a chance of increasing our liability, because if you delay, then other exporter who is having buyer limit on this buyer can export to this buyer, then increase the liability. Recently, we have seen one claim, then because we have detected that increasing liability from exporter's claim. So it may happen. That's why you should not delay the filing the report of default if the payment is delayed beyond 30 days from the due date. So these are the loss minimization. If the payment, the shipment is not taken, or the shipment is not accepted by the exporter, these are the safeguards. You will have to shift the consignment to bonded warehouse. You should not make further shipment. Then you will have to ask extension from ECGC. Then you will have to note the bills noted and protested. You can approach the High Commission and consulate for any other help. And then you will have to file a claim. The filing claim, we have given the date, timings that you can see in the claim form also. Then recovery action you will have to take through debt collecting agency. We have some 20 plus debt collecting agencies. They will be collecting by success fee basis. If they have succeeded, they will collect some percentage, 20 or 25%. If they have not succeeded, they will not collect any fees. That is through which they are operating, through which you will have to take recovery action. These are the don'ts. Okay. So you will, whether you will have to see policies renewed and other things, just the slides will be available with the member EEPC. The members can take the slides, you can go through. Madam, you can share if anyone wants. Then next, coming to lodgement of claim. Lodgement of claim, in case of default within 4 months from the due date, the exporter has to file claim. In case of repudiation, it means non-acceptance of consignment, immediately you can file a claim. If it is insolvency, within 1 month from the debt is acknowledged by the administrator or receiver. So within 360 days from the due date or 540 days from the expiry of policy, claim has to be filed. Specific format is with us. In the format itself, which are the documents are to be submitted along with claim form is available, but just for reference I have given. These are the normal documents: contract, invoice, bill of lading, okay, non-payment advice, unpaid bill of exchange, protest note, correspondence with the buyer, then recovery action you have taken, then 2 years statement. Then the claim form should be certified by your banker who has dealt the document. Some of the lapses I have given. Normally what lapses we are seeing while processing the claim, mostly the advance premium are not deposited, quarterly premiums are not paid, declaration, if it is the declaration based policy, declaration not been submitted within the timing, then the website is not checked whether the buyer is in visa or the country is in restricted cover country, then default delay in filing default, that increase our liability, making further shipment when earlier shipments are overdue. So sometimes buyers are pressurizing the exporters, you make further shipment, then only I will make the earlier shipment. I will make the shipment you have already made. In such cases, you take advice from ECGC, you get the approval, you do it, then it will be easy if at all if the payment is not made by the buyer in future. So prior approval for extension and resale, re-import, abandonment. If the goods are not accepted by the exporters, if the shipment has gone on DP or DA, you will have to approach ECGC. You ask for extension in due date if at all, and you have made a shipment on DA 90 days. He wants DA 180 days. Then you can take approval from ECGC. If it is resale, then if the loss is more than 25% resale or re-importment losses, then you will have to take our approval. If it is less than 25%, you can take decision, but you will have to inform to ECGC within 30 days. So delay in lodgement of claim, then required documents are not submitted. These are some of the common lapses we have found while processing the claims. Next is recovery action. After making the payment, you will have to take a recovery action either through debt collecting agencies. Some cases we will request the exporter to go for legal action. Then after recovery, you will have to share the recovery whatever you have received, deducting the recovery expenses in the same ratio in which ECGC has paid claim. These are some of the data what we are share with the ASEAN countries. See, these are the share of ASEAN countries ECGC is having covering. This is almost 10% of the total exports ASEAN countries we are covering. It's a 10%. 10.83%. This is the risk value covered, means we have covered country-wise. Country-wise, we have covered our coverage. If you see this, Singapore plays vital role. This is the place got first place. Then second is Vietnam. Like that, these are all the business we have ECGC has covered during last 3 years. See the countries we have categorized. I was explaining about 7 categories. ASEAN countries are placed in, except one Myanmar. All other countries are A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. What it implies? Our premium is based on this rating of the country as well as the tenor of the shipment. If it is a DA 90 days shipment or OD days 90 days shipments to C2 countries or C1 country, premium rate will be higher. That's why we are charging the premium based on the country rating as well as the tenor of the export. So that's why this plays vital role. This is the medium and long term ratings. Some of this data is premium collected for the exports made to these countries. It's not much, but still we have 10% cover. Singapore is the first place. Same way claim experience. Our claiming experience to Asian countries is very good. We have not paid much claim for the last 3 years. You can see from the data, except to Vietnam. And in last year, 1920, 1.69 crore to Thailand. Otherwise, our experience with Asian countries are good. Under MLT, this is the cover we have given. What I have shown earlier is short-term cover. That's all. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. If you have any query or question, you can ask now or after finishing this one. These are our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anbarasan. I think it was quite a detailed presentation and it must have benefited the exporting community and the manufacturers who are present at the meeting today. I request that if there are any questions, you can kindly take it, type it in the chat box and we will take it up during the Q&A session. EPC India has a copy of the presentation and we will circulate it amongst all the participants of the session. I invite the next speaker, Mr. T.D. Srinivas, General Manager, Exim Bank. And I invite you, sir, to make the presentation and he will be speaking on the topic of new financial structures for increasing India's exports to the ASEAN countries.
Thank you, Ms. Pallavi. I'm T.D. Sivakumar.
Yes.
Sir, if you can just unshare the screen, please. If you can just unshare. Thank you. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. A very good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Pallavi. I'm happy to be part of this India-ASEAN Engineering Partnership Summit in general, and specifically in the session of enhancing India-ASEAN trade in engineering and allied sectors. Mr. P.K. Shah, dignitaries of EEPC, stakeholders of Indo-ASEAN trade, participants, a very good afternoon. I'll be making a presentation on enhancing India-ASEAN trade, engineering and allied sectors. To set the context for the presentation, I'll just first cover India-ASEAN cooperation. As you would know that ASEAN-India relations have seen a significant rise in cooperation in the economic and political spheres. Now let's take what is India's view on ASEAN and ASEAN views on India. India understands that the Asian bloc consists of countries which have achieved significant development. It is in India's interest to establish economic beneficial linkages with ASEAN. If you look at ASEAN views on India, ASEAN sees India as an emerging partner power in Asia and is keen to develop relations with it that would be beneficial to countries with ASEAN and to the region as a whole. It realizes that India possesses large strategic capabilities and can be a strong stabilizing force in the region. Economically, India, with this burgeoning middle class, can be a significant market for Asian manufacturers. ASEAN and India relationship, apart from assuming economic intelligence significance, is also strategically vital to the region in and around Indian Ocean. Just give me a minute, some problem. Yeah. Now to set the India-ASEAN trade, in fact, Mr. PK Shah gave some background of details, but just to give little more details. If you see, for the last 10 years, starting from 2011 to 2020, exports has increased from about 34.5 billion, and it has increased, over a period of time, it has reached, I think, somewhere between, it has reached 36.3 at one point of time, and currently it is 29.6 billion US dollars. In terms of imports, it has increased from 40.3, it has peaked to 57.5. Currently, it is about 44 billion US dollars. This is for India-ASEAN trade in the US dollar billion. Look at the total trade. It has increased again from 74.8. It has peaked at some time to 93.8. Currently, it is 73.7 billion US dollars. In terms of trade deficit, it always been negative for India. It has increased from 5.8 negative to 14.4 negative in last year. It had peaked negative in 2019 with 22.8 billion US dollars. If you see both rise in total India-ASEAN trade underlined by buoyancy in both exports and imports, actually more of imports, I would say. Share of ASEAN in India's total exports to the world was 10.8% in 2020, and India's import share from ASEAN was about 12%. In terms of the growth, export was about 1.1% during the last 2011 to 2019, and for the same period, import was significantly higher at 5%. India-ASEAN FTA is expected to further provide the necessary impetus for boosting the trade relationship. If I look at the country-wise trading partners, both exports and imports, I think this some data was shared by Mr. Anberson also. In terms of exports, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand are the leading trading partners for India. In terms of imports, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand are the major partners. The largest import source countries for India in the ASEAN region include Singapore with 28% share, Indonesia with 27%, and Malaysia 17%, all three in last year. On the other hand, the large export destination for India in the ASEAN region, Singapore, again with 28%. Malaysia is the second with 21, and Vietnam with 15.2 with the third position for the last year. Now look at some of the major products, both in exports and imports. Mineral fuels and oils, ships, boats, and floating structures, machinery and machinery appliances are the major products. In terms of imports, mineral fuels and oils, electrical machinery and equipment, animal and or vegetable fats and oils, machinery, and mechanical appliances are the major products. Just 1 second. Yeah, this is some of the key observations which gives potential headroom for enhancing trade, both country-wise and product-wise. Since some of the things have been discussed, I'll only highlight India's strengths and opportunities in ASEAN region. I would highlight 4 broad categories: IT, light engineering, pharmaceuticals, and agro processing. And as you'd say, light engineering is a potential where, as EPC, we can work together. Now we have looked at the trade. Now let us look at the investment opportunities. In terms of India's ODI to ASEAN, Singapore ranks the top, followed by Malaysia, Indonesia. In terms of India's FDI inflows from ASEAN, Singapore again tops with 115.09, followed by Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand. Singapore is the largest destination, accounting for 94.4 of the region's total during April 2002 to March 2021. Indian companies are mainly engaged in IT, oil and gas exploration, agrochemical, hospitality. FDI from ASEAN region to India during the year 2000 to 21 totaled about 117.89 billion. And Singapore is the second largest source of India's global FDI inflows after Mauritius and single largest from this region. But one point to be taken is that since Singapore is a tax friendly country, some of the investments, both inward and outward, are routed for this purpose as also. Now I focus primarily on Indo-ASEAN trade, but I've also covered some part of India Exim Bank. I'll cover briefly, but I'll be more happy to discuss considering the time constraints. As everyone would know, Exim Bank was set up in March 1981 under an act of parliament to finance, facilitate, promote India's trusted investment. Only owned by Government of India, we commenced in operations in March 1982. We are completing 40 years now with the objective, with a specific objective to finance and facilitate Indian trade and investment. Exim Bank offers financing for imports, product development, production, marketing, pre-shipment, post-shipment, finalized investment abroad. Exim Bank's vision has evolved over the years, and Exim Bank was set up in the early 80s. Exim Bank vision was to finance export credit. Then we have slightly enhanced to finance export capability. Now we offer a comprehensive range of products and services at all stages of the export business cycle. And through this, we have achieved leadership and expertise in internationalization of Indian companies. And Exim Bank's vision has evolved from product-centric to customer-centric over the years. Exim Bank's products and services can be broadly categorized into export credits, finance for export capability creation, value-added services. In terms of export credit, it can be broadly categorized into projects, products, and services. Under projects, Exim Bank offers supplies and buyers credit, pre-shipment, and non-fund-based facilities. And under products, Exim Bank offers lines of credit, pre-shipment, post-shipment, and non-fund-based. Under services, Exim Bank offers supplies credit, buyers credit, and guarantees and LCs. This is what ECGC ED had mentioned about BCNAA, which I can explain if required. Under finance for export capability creation, Exim Bank offers term loans, offers working capital, offers finance for export marketing, finance for export facilitation, finance for overseas investment finance, finance for import of capital goods and raw materials, offers non-fund-based facilities under guarantees and LCs. In the last finance budget, FY20, Honorable Finance Minister had introduced this program, Ubrata Sitare. In fact, on Saturday again, the Finance Minister launched the particular fund, Ubrata Sitare Fund. Exim Bank also has a finance for R&D. Under value-added services, Exim Bank offers export marketing services, multilateral funded projects, advisory services, joint venture facilitation, consultancy support, organize a workshop and seminars, and also offers information and advisory services. In terms of Exim Bank select initiatives in ASEAN region, Exim Bank has given LOCs to Cambodia, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, Vietnam, and offered buyers credit, commercial buyers credit. Just to give an example, we have financed a commercial company, Usha CM Steel Industries Public Company Limited, offers a buyer's credit for import from steel products from India. Under overseas investment finance, primarily for Singapore, Exim Bank had offered financing for few companies, including Armada C7 for FPSO, GNext, again a company in packaging, HRS Infratrek, Paharpur Cooling, Sanvira, Tata International Singapore, some of which, as I said, are holding companies. In terms of way forward, what we feel, one is India needs to literally act east. While we have act east, but we have to literally act east. We're participating with great vigor to create infrastructure facilities in less developed countries in ASEAN like CLMV. India's objectives in ASEAN can also be furthered through soft intervention areas like engineering, which India has done greatly in railway lines in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, which can be explored in this region. soft in terms of education, we can explore potential of opening premier institutions of IIT-IIMs type in Southeast Asia. The Nalanda project, which envisages the setting up of an international university, is noteworthy. Tourism again can be explored, not just to one side, but even from India side also. In terms of hospitals, given the current COVID situation, greater private sector investments to create cost-effective hospital facilities could be explored in this region. India and ASEAN members may also utilize the potential of India-ASEAN FTA and services to its fullest. In fact, Mr. P.K. Shah in its address mentioned about RCEP. Yes, no, since India has not signed, we can try and use India-ASEAN FTA. Mr. P.K. Shah also mentioned about the study which Government of India did through Exim Bank, and he offered working together with Exim Bank. We'll be happy to work with EEPC. I just want to mention to Mr. P.K. Shah, recently during our DMD visit to Delhi, we had discussed a meeting, had a meeting with the EPC to find out how as an EPC and Exim Bank can work together in terms of introducing new products like factoring. We'll be happy to discuss a little more about both project exports as well as factoring. This is a very brief presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Sivakumar. It was quite an insightful presentation. And in fact, I was present during your DMD's visit to the Delhi office, and we shared very encouraging and interesting ideas on how we can take the Exim Bank closer to the MSME exporters. And immediately after the ASEAN Summit, we will be working on these areas. Now, coming to the questions, if there are any questions from the audience, you can type it in the chat box and we can take it up. Kindly name the person or the agency to whom the question is addressed.
May I ask? Yeah. I would request, may I request Mr. Anbarasan that whether he can highlight something about this Nirvik scheme, which was announced long time back by government. Nirvik scheme.
Sir, it is under active consideration.
No,
last week, Saturday, Commerce Secretary was in town, Mumbai. He discussed with the scheme. They have asked some, means the Finance Ministry has asked some queries from us. It has been replied to all the queries. At any time they may announce.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anytime, because all are after that scheme, all are putting pressure to the ministry. Not only,
yeah. It was announced long time back, so that's why all our exporters are very keen.
Yes,
because
we understand, sir. We understand. We are finance. Also.
Yes.
They have asked some analysis from banks. Some banks. Last week we have conducted some of the banks, big banks, SBI, PNB, Union Bank of India, and one private banks. They wanted that rates what they are charging. That analysis we have submitted in the last Friday. Then Saturday, Commerce Secretary was in Mumbai. We discussed with them, with him. Then, so at any time it will be expected.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now this brings us to the close of today's session, and it's time now to propose the vote of thanks. Mr. P.K. Shah, former Chairman EEPC India, Mr. C.N.I. Anvarasan, Executive Director ECGC, Mr. T.D. Sivakumar, General Manager Exim Bank, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Friends, it's a privilege and a great joy for me to extend a vote of thanks to all those who have contributed from both India and ASEAN for the advent of this memorable journey, which will foster bilateral relations to the new heights. I propose a hearty vote of thanks to our distinguished dignitaries, Mr. C.N.A. Anvarasan, Executive Director Operations from ECGC, and Mr. T.D. Sivakumar, General Manager for Exim Bank, for the cooperation to make this happen. A special mention to Mr. P.K. Shah, former chairman EEPC India, who was also present at the session today and has been a constant source of encouragement to all of us. I express my sincere gratitude to all the delegates and participants who have graced the occasion today. EPC India will be sharing the presentation copies with all the participants, and we hope that you were benefited by this session. Thank you to one and all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you from our side, madam, for giving this opportunity. It was a very pleasure from our side.
Once again,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you, Sir Kumar.